Hello, welcome to Lead, Learn, Connect, where we explore the world of training and development. Not just the how of helping people grow, but the behind-the-scenes work of making this a success. My guest today joins us from New Delhi, India. Dupinder Deep has over 14 years of experience in learning and development and a master's degree in psychology. Dupinder specializes in leadership development and empowering aspiring and seasoned leaders through innovative learning programs. She's currently the Senior Manager in Leadership Development with Foundever, a large global company. Whether you're a new trainer, a seasoned facilitator, or just curious about what it takes to thrive in this world, this episode is for you. Welcome, Dupinder.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you. I look forward to hearing from you. It's nice to be talking to someone in a whole different continent. So, yeah. So we talked about a number of things ahead of time, and one of them is motivating learners, and not just motivating them to attend the training and pay attention, which is important, but also to actually use the training after they're done. That if they don't use it, they lose it, and getting people to change their behavior. That's what the training is about. What do you do to both motivate them in the session and then motivate them afterwards to try to make sure they implement it?
It's a very interesting question. And actually, if I start talking about it, I can probably take like hours. So I'll try to shrink it down and talk about the most important things that I feel should be kept in mind whenever you are training, especially in leadership development and training aspiring and current seasoned leaders. So when you talk about motivation, so inherently speaking, people are not unmotivated to learn. Okay. The problem is that they are not convinced that the learning that we are offering is worth the trade off. And of course, there are some exceptions there, but most of the population that you see, they need to see the value in it. So that if I have to write it down, I will bifurcate it into four things, right? One, every training that you're offering today should be relevant to your audience. So, if I am training aspiring leaders, then it should speak to the competencies that I'm planning to develop, and they should know that what are the competencies that they need to become successful leaders in the future. Okay, and they need to see where they are going, basically, that vision. Second is that when you talk about training, and I always say this, you have to take a step back. As a leadership development trainer or as a manager, okay, um, what is your reputation? Okay, how do they perceive you? Because you will be the one who will be introducing them to something, right? And you have to have that rapport, you have to have that influence, you have to have that impact on them already. And that impact is created not in one day. Okay, either you are a brand, of course. If I pick someone from the market who's a brand who's written 10 books, then okay, it speaks for itself and people will listen to you because they know that you're going to add value to them. However, if I'm doing this for an organization and people not necessarily, I am not a brand yet, right? I am just a trainer who comes from experience. Then what is my relationship with my audience already? How do they perceive me? Do they perceive me as someone who is a reliable source? Do they perceive me a person who leads by example? Do they see me as professional? So these little habits, right, in your everyday behaviors that you have to emulate to make sure that people see you as a credible person first. That's when you become a leader. And that's when it's important, that's how it becomes important and it becomes more impactful. If you will go in a class or you will facilitate a training and speak to the people, they will then listen to you because they see you as credible source. And then comes the engagement part. So whenever you are training people, motivation is very much like waves, it comes and goes. Okay,
Yep.
I may walk into a training, I may walk into a session very motivated, but after some time, if I don't see or I don't feel engaged, I don't see that I'm getting what I came for, my motivation is going to start to diminish, right? So that engagement has to be there. So that engagement, it differs from audience to audience. You can't engage senior leaders as you would engage probably, a person who's just out of college, right? Because for them, engagement is more like fun, right? But if you're engaging leaders in a session, then you have to allow them to put their thoughts on the table, right? You have to create an environment where they feel like you are building on their own experience. You are not treating them as a blank slate, right? Because trust me or not everybody is good at unlearning, okay? Automatically. You have to teach them that. So these are some of the things, that I feel helps me and people that I work with to spark that motivation towards learning in the audience that we are catering to. I hope that
Okay,
helps.
I really like what you said about um, creating this vision for them as
Yeah,
to where they're going and how this training fits into that vision. So
yeah.
your credibility is important and how you present yourself and all that. But what motivates them, I think, to follow up is what you said, that if they're seeing that what you're teaching is not only important for today, but is a
Hmm.
building block for the future, that if they
Yeah.
learn this, they have a better chance of moving ahead and being successful. Um, so I think that's a great strategy that um, I don't always do. I come in and have a content to teach, and I establish my credibility, and I do the engagement. But putting it in a bigger context can be really good. Any other tips and strategies for how to get people to actually implement what you've taught?
Hmm. Okay, then see, implementation is 50% of the training actually. Implementation has to be there, right? And when we talk about building competencies do not build with knowledge, right? You need a combination of the knowledge and the skill, right? So we have to create that environment in order for people to that test environment basically, where people can implement what they have learned in the class. So go back to your childhood, right? How did you learn and grasp and build those basic skills, right? We would learn things in the school. We will come back home and we'll parrot it back to whoever is the next person, right? Maybe a sibling or maybe an aunt, uncle, parents, I don't know. And we would just parrot it back, right? Whatever we have seen, we have observed, we will just pick it up and we will try to implement it, right? Replicate it. That experience. Because that is how a knowledge is converted into a skill. And that is true to all the skills in the world, whether it is cooking, driving a car, baking. The more you do it, the easier it gets for you, right? Similarly, take an example for coaching. Coaching is a skill, coaching is not knowledge. I can teach you 100 frameworks right now, okay? But it would not make any sense if I am not giving you a test environment to go and implement it. And while you're implementing it, there should be a culture created where people are allowed to make mistakes. I read it in a book somewhere that the cultures that stigmatize failures or view learning as low priority automatically discourage their individuals from seeking out knowledge and skills, right? So you have to create that environment for people to make those mistakes in a controlled way, so that they can learn from them. Because people would be afraid of going out and making those mistakes in the real world, probably in a wider audience, right? But if you give them that comfort where they can do it in a controlled environment, save them that embarrassment that they fear, it'll be easier for them to then pick it up and implement it in the real world. You have a feedback opportunity that you can share with them, right? So those environments are created as a part of the learning framework itself whenever we make one. And that is how the design now works. nothing is theoretical. Everything is a blend of theory and practical. And I think that works for everybody.
Okay, so you in the training itself, you build in some practice opportunities. You talked about engaging people and having them share their own experience and
Yeah.
tying all that together.
Yeah.
And so they have moved from knowledge to skill in the class. They've started to use it, but the real learning takes place when they use it every day. So, do you have any follow-up activities or anything you do to encourage that? So that
Hmm.
because people go back to work and they've missed the day of work and they've got all these things to do, and even though they learned it and liked it, it goes out of their mind. It's not front and center anymore. And that so I don't know if there's anything in your organization or any way that you kind of promote that follow up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And before I dive into that, to answer your question, Alan, you know how they say that organization hire people with experience so that they can come in and they can lift things, right? Add value. But sometimes when you come into the organization, you realize a few things and you learn a few things that actually become a part of who you are in, in general, a part of your identity, right? I think that stands true for me because in my organization, yes, that is a part of the design. And not everything has to be fancy. Okay. So the follow ups that you're talking about, now, since, as I said, we have this as a part of the frameworks when we design a training program, that's how it is, right? So it has naturally become a way of life. So everybody is a part of it. So whoever is learning, their supervisors, their managers, most of them, they have gone through this journey. So they understand the importance of it. And we have people, helping as mentors. And this is across the board, all the regions, all the clients and all the departments that we have. So it is the way of life for us. Now, when it comes to the follow ups, as a team, as a leadership development manager, I have simple conversations with people on regular basis. We have open channels where they can come and discuss their challenges. And these conversations, they keep that, momentum going. And people know that they are supported. So whenever they are stuck anywhere, they come back and they ask for help. We don't have to really go and monitor whether they are doing it or not doing it, because it is how we breathe and live now. Everybody knows what they are doing, and that, there's one important thing, that clarity, the communication that goes across all the levels from day one. That's very, very important. So at any point in time, anybody would know what's happening, where they are in the journey, what they have to do next, who is the person who's going to help them if they are stuck. If it is a technical issue, where do they go? If it is a non-technical issue, where do they go? And if I see that someone is falling behind because of lack of motivation, that's when a little bit of pep talk helps.
Okay, yeah. So you've sounds like you've built a real learning organization that it's embedded in the culture. You've got mentors supporting people. You've got supervisors who've been through the training who are encouraged to kind of help the new people
Yeah.
implement what they have. And then you've got the backstop of if they're stuck, they can always contact you and work with them. So you've built in a kind of an infrastructure to support the training beyond the actual day of training. So that's
Yeah.
it sounds really good, really thorough.
Thank you.
Um, Another thing we talked about is different generations, and I have a problem, categorizing a generation as, well, these people are this and those people are that. I found that it doesn't hold up in terms of their personal traits and characteristics, who's conscientious and who's dedicated. Um, but what you raised, I thought, was an interesting point, that people learn uh, to assimilate information based on kind of what the technology is. So back in my day, the technology was pen and paper and someone talking to us, and maybe watching a movie here and there, but mostly very, you know, non-technical. And then you've pointed out that the younger generation, everything is highly technical. They're on YouTube, they're on texting, they're messaging, they're connecting with people electronically. The teachers are probably assigning electronic homework of going see this thing on YouTube, or go to this chat room and have conversations. And there's virtual colleges where they never see the professor. It's all done through platforms. Um, so, how have you accommodated that? Again, I'm sure you have many generations working and many generations coming to a class. And what do you do to kind of accommodate the high tech people and the low tech people, and make training effective?
Hmm. Okay. Actually, you're not the first person who said this to me. This week, this is the second time, and I think it's a very common question that is being asked, right? Um, we are still not ready for the next generation, that'll be Gen Alpha, but the current generation at hand that we have is Gen X, oh sorry, Gen Z, or the technical generation as we call them. So you're right. Back in the day, it was pen and paper, more patience, more stability, right? People could sit for hours, listen to, supposedly boring lectures. I do not. I mean, back in the day, we could finish one Sigmund Freud book easily without blinking. But nowadays, if I would ask a Gen Zer to pick up and read a Sigmund Freud, they are probably going to fall asleep in the first page itself, right? So I know that patience is a commodity now, right? Hard to find, very rare. And so hyperactivity has actually become a thing. It's become the norm now. So whenever we talk about trainings or designing trainings, the main audience that we have currently, uh, you know, is either a millennial or a Gen Z, right? We do have Gen Xers as well, not denying that. And we do train Gen Xers as well. But that's where, you know, Gen Xers are, because they are very patient, they don't mind those, old school lectures, sitting in a classroom having discussions. That's okay. But when you talk about the Gen Z, specifically Gen Z, that's where flexibility comes in play. Okay, they may join, they may do a course, right? But you have to bake in the flexibility. So, for instance, you have earlier we had learning management systems where people will make courses, upload it, and that's it, right? Those courses used to have a very static form of delivery where you would start a course, you have to finish that course, otherwise it'll just start over. You can't just pause it. But nowadays we have learning experience platforms, right? Really smart ones. And you, just like a YouTube video, you can just start anywhere, stop anywhere. You can pause it, you can keep it for days. It wouldn't go. It would pick up your preferences and it would recommend courses, right? Just like you see that in LinkedIn Learning now. In LinkedIn Learning, you also see that there is some form of AI role play happening wherever you are learning a skill. So they are also trying to bake it in. Similarly, whenever we are delivering anything, whether it is self-paced or it is in the classroom format, we have to bake in that flexibility. We have to bring in those role plays every few minutes, right? And make sure that people are engaged so that they have a different kind of stimulation or simulation happening. Every few minutes, nothing is static. It has to be dynamic and hyper dynamic sometimes. The second thing that helps is, when in terms of flexibility, where people are allowed to revisit in form of recordings, right? Um, and some form of hands-on activities that we baked in into the training courses for them, so that they are not overly dependent on, interacting with a trainer, a facilitator. They can just learn, from what is available as a backup for them. So flexibility, I think that is the most important thing there is. Then comes the collaborative learning, and then this is where it gets tricky. Okay, imagine you have like a 45-year-old sitting in the same classroom as a 22-year-old, right? Of course,
Yeah.
it's a huge gap. Now, how do you encourage participation, right? You have to put them on the same table in form of some activity, right? You have to push them to collaborate. Now, why I say push them to collaborate? See, I can describe the value of something in words for the 10th time, but unless you see that for yourself, you're not going to believe me. So while they may hesitate and you have to put a little extra effort to put them there in the same room, but once they start to collaborate, that's where they start to see the value. Majority of your population will then start to engage, because not because there's respect or admiration already. No, it's not. But it's a different flavor. Okay, it's a different spice palette now. So as soon as you have your first bite, it may feel a little awkward, but the moment you have your second bite, you start getting accustomed to that taste. It's like, okay, yeah, it's not that bad. I can live with that. So once they start to see that value for themselves, right, that's where that, motivation kicks in and things start to change. So your Gen X and the generation before that has the wisdom of the world, the patience of the world. They've seen the evolution like no other generation. The Gen Z has seen the technology like no other generation. And now comes millennials. I'm a millennial. Okay. Millennials are the most flexible generation there is. They are the least of the worry if I compare it with, you know, the other two generation, not because, they are better, but because of where they are in the timeline. They've seen the change, they've lived the change, right? And, you know, they've seen major changes. So they are very flexible. And of course, I'm not generalizing it, just a disclaimer. Exceptions are always there, right? You will find, a 20-year-old with the highest level of self-awareness. You will find a 60-year-old with the lowest of the self-awareness. Exceptions are always there, right? But these are the general characteristics that you see and you read in the studies and you experience by yourself while you are interacting with these people. So I hope that answers your question. I know
Yeah,
I
no,
spoke.
that's good to have to be cognizant of that and to have options for the high tech people that they can go on do it online themselves. But when you get them in a classroom, to help them learn to see that relationships matter and relationships are valuable, and learning together, collaborative learning, which again, with the pandemic and technology, people got isolated, and then to come back to
Yeah.
this engagement. So, no, so thank you for highlighting for me one area of generational differences that I think is totally legitimate. Is the way people have learned to learn and to take in information. Very different, and that was very helpful. Unfortunately, we're out of time. It's gone by very quickly, but thank you so much for being with us today. And I look forward to continuing to talk together. But that's it for today's episode of Lead, Learn, and Connect. A huge thank you to Dupinder Deep for sharing her expertise and knowledge. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe, share it with a colleague, and leave a review. You can find out more about Dupinder and her work in the show notes. If you're ready to strengthen how you teach or coach communication, click the link to our website to learn more about the T.E.A.M model of communication, and follow us on LinkedIn. Until next time, keep leading with intention, keep learning, and keep connecting. Thanks for listening.